Hey, I'm Charlie Craven. We're back. We're going to tie a few more flies today. Today is going to be the mole fly. This is a fly that is sort of undersung, and although these days it's sort of getting a little more popular. Um, People ask me all the time if I had one fly to fish, which would it be? And I hate that question in general, but if I had one fly to fish for rising fish that were eating baetis or midges, the mole fly gets the nod every time for sure, no doubt about it. Really a very simple fly, really cheap to tie, quick and easy too. So even if you're not much of a tyer, you can tie this fly and I guarantee it works. So this is a baetis sort of a merger cripple pattern, and it's tied on a Umpqua 2487. So that's the down eye light wire curve shank hook. Down eye specifically. Don't substitute a 2488 or an up eye hook. You want something with the down eye. And I'll explain why when I get done with the fly. So I'm going to tie this with 8/0 gray unithread. And I'm going to start this thread just up here behind the eye. Get rid of my tag end. And I'm going to take 3 strands of white fluoro fiber. So what I usually do with these is I'll leave my thread hanging up here toward the hook eye, and I'm going to take the fluoro fiber behind the thread from the far side of the hook and loop it around the thread and bring it up underneath that turn of thread. That's the easiest way to capture it. I've got a little curl in that piece, so I'm going to pull that forward a bit. Tighten that turn up, get another turn on there, then I'll sweep all of those forward like so. So those are all sticking out over the hook eye. I'm going to reposition that hook just a bit. So now I'm going to select a couple of nice CDC feathers. And I usually do tie my molds with 2 feathers. So what I'm looking for is something like so. This is just natural mallard CDC. If you know somebody that hunts ducks, you'll get 1 billion pounds of it from them. And what I'll do is I'll take and sort of even the 2 tips of those 2 feathers up and sort of preen the stuff on the bottom down and just bundle those tips into a little bunch like so. So I'm going to take that bunch of tips and measure it so it's about a shank length long. And I'm going to tie this in up here just behind the hook eye. Get that propped in my fingers a little better. Get a couple turns on it and kind of draw it down to length so it's just about a shank length long. And then I'll wrap back over it. I'll lift these buttons up, and when I trim this out, what I want to do, I know my hand will be in the way a bit, but I want to kind of come in at an angle here so that those buttons are tapered. Now, don't throw away what was left of those 2 feathers. So here's what I've got left. If I come in with these remaining 2 feathers and trim this center stem out, I can now bundle all these loose fibers back up again, trim them square on the end, and I've got another bundle ready for the next fly. So I can do that 2 or 3 times on the same set of feathers. So from this point, I'm just going to start to wrap down over those butts, and when I get to the end of those butts, I'm going to stop. You can also, at this point, trim these fluorofiber fibers out, and I'm not going to trim them to the same length as the wing. I'm going to trim them just a little proud, maybe a quarter their length longer. You can see how they'll stick out just so they're exposed. That fluorofiber was an add-on to the original pattern, just to make the fly a little easier to see. This fly is pretty flat colored. It's not the easiest fly to see. I guess it's one liability, but adding a few strands of fluorofiber gives you a little bit of shine and sparkle to look for. Now I'm going to take some brown beaver dubbing, and I've got just a little touch of it here, and it's not going to take very much. And beaver dubbing specifically, don't use superfine dubbing or synthetic buoyant dubbing. You want beaver dubbing here because it will get wetted, and ultimately we want the body of this fly to hang down under the water. So we want a dubbing that we can saturate easily, and beaver dubbing works nicely for that. So I'm going to dub that on fairly thin, and you can see I have not dubbed or haven't wrapped the thread all the way down around the hook bend yet. I've got some bare thread between the dubbing and the hook, so I'm going to use that bare thread to travel back. So I've just got that single layer there, back about halfway down the bend, and then I'll start to dub forward. And you don't really have to build much taper here, because the tapering of the butts will sort of build it for you. And I want to end right behind the wing with the dubbed thread there. And then I'm going to grab the wing and the fluorofiber and bring my thread in front, just behind the hook eye. So just tuck a wrap in there. I'm not really tying anything off, I'm just moving the thread. I'll set my whip finisher up, and I'll sweep my wing back and sneak my whip finish in between the hook eye and the wing. Tighten that down, trim that thread out, and then I like to use a little wire dubbing brush to sort of pick this dubbing out on the body, just because so it'll be a little bit more easily wetted, so it'll hang down in the surface film. Now the idea of this fly, I'll sort of position him here, bring him down just a notch. The idea of this fly is that the water line sits about like so, about parallel with the hook eye. So the wing is on top of the water, but that body is hanging underneath. And man, that's really a key for fish. If they, I've had fish that aren't even rising. If you can see a fish kind of just hanging out in shallow water, if you throw this over him enough and get a good drift, he'll swim right over and eat it, right up and eat it off the surface. So you can kind of force them to eat the dry with this fly. And man, if they're eating dries on their own, they're suckers for it. You know, this fly should have been called the answer. It could have been called love, because it's really all you need. So I could have been called a lot of things, but it's not a fly that I ever leave at home if I am going somewhere to fish dries. If there's hatches, Baetis hatches, you know, small sizes for midges, really any sort of mayfly. You can vary the colors of the body. You can mix up the general profile or silhouette, but the gist of it remains the same, the way it sets in the water. Very simple little fly. Don't overcomplicate it. Don't add too much to it. Right here, just like this, works wonderfully. And you know, right now, I guarantee you, I have 100 of these in my Baetis box right now. And honestly, I could have just that compartment out of that box. I really just need this fly. That's all I'm going to say about that. Tie some up of your own. Take them out and fish them. See what you think. Let me know. Thank me later. See ya.